1. It was a hot day that day, about 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and I had a choice: walk to work, wait an ungodly amount of time for a bus ride 10 minutes down the road, or a 25-minute bike ride. In the heat, I decided to take my bike, a prized $120 Walmart beach cruiser in bright mango. I should add early that I am a grown-ass woman, almost 26 at the time of this happening. I set off on what should be a quick ride to work in my all-black cook uniform on a mango bike. Half the trip goes great, then the dreaded crosswalk approaches. This crosswalk is a 4-way traffic light stop, always busy as hell, and is one of those that feels like it takes forever to get the light to turn. I always dreaded it. I'm already covered in sweat, it's hot as the devil's asshole, and I'm pissed that I will have to work in a hot-ass kitchen all night in my already sweaty attire. Side note, I'm smart enough to know I'm not one of those ride in the roadside bike lane people, so I am the courteous pull-over while other people walk on the sidewalk rider. As I approach the first encounter of the crosswalk, I see a mom with her kid in a stroller, and I lead to veer off the right to give her ample space. My bike tire clips the raised curb, and there I go. Short as I am, unable to plant my feet on the ground before I fall, I tumble over the side of my bike into the road in front of the car in the right-hand turning lane. I'm okay, I just fell. Man, I'm a dumbass. But I get back up on my bike and wait an agonizing 2 minutes for the crosswalk sign to light up to cross the road. I'm still a little shaken up. Falling on your ass in front of 50 watching eyes, all trapped at a traffic light, will do that to you. So the crosswalk sign goes on, and I cross the road, only to be not paying attention, and my tire, yet again, hits the raised curb, and I lose control of the handlebars. This time, I fall flat on my face over the bike, and when I look up, all the same people are stopped, in the same cars all gawking at me. A few people were visibly laughing hard at me. I must have looked drunk. I was definitely not drunk. With shame, I quickly got on my bike and rode the rest of the way to work, cursing and with a bump on my head. The night at work is slow, so they cut me after just a few hours. I get on my bike to ride home again, and at the dreaded crosswalk, I stop, and I'm waiting for the sign to cross. A guy next to me starts doubling over with laughter, and he points right at me and goes, "Oh God, you're that chick! You fell over twice earlier! Are you okay?" I ignored him, feeling my cheeks bursting with redness and wanting the cement to swallow me whole. I got home, parked my bike on the porch, and gave it to a kid next door a couple weeks later. Safe to say I'm done riding bikes. Forever. 2. To start, I am the kind of person who does not check their finances or banking information often. I've always lived with the slight worry that my bank info has been stolen, and that when I go to check my purchases, I'll see I've been screwed over by some unknown credit card thief. To mediate this, I would just never look at my purchases. Ignorance is bliss? Well, last January, I decided that I was sick of living in worry. I finally went on my bank's app and went through the purchases on my debit account for that month. There, I saw my worst fear. A purchase to a store I've never been to, called the Satellite Depot. I searched it up and found that it was in my city, but over half an hour drive from where I live. The dubious purchase was around $70. Alarm bells were ringing, so I quickly went home to go on my laptop to investigate further. There I found that at least once a month, purchases were being made to the Satellite Depot. All of them were around $70, but some were well over $100. After worrying and stressing for a few days, I am not on top of my issues, I went to the bank to file a fraud report. At the bank, I meticulously calculated all of the purchases for the report. It was around $600 for the past 6 months. I completed the form, but I had to wait around 2 weeks for the fraud team to finish investigating. While I was waiting, I did my own little PI work. I went on Kijiji, which is a local classified site in Canada, and searched up people who were selling satellites, thinking maybe someone was making a business out of stealing from me. I found a guy who lived right next to the satellite depot and was selling a bunch of satellites. Enraged, but not wanting to scare him, I sent an email asking about the satellites he was selling. I was playing it nonchalant, but deep down inside I figured that it must be him, who somehow copied my debit account info and was stealing from me. It was all making sense now. After waiting, I went back to the bank to see what their fraud team had found out. The results were that those purchases were coming from my card. They told me that someone was most likely stealing my card from me, and asked if I had a boyfriend who might be stealing it. This was preposterous, and made me rather frustrated. I explained that it could not be me nor my card making those purchases, as a lot of the purchases I did make on my debit card were close in time to the purchases at the satellite depot. Yet the former purchases were in the area I live in. Now there was no way I could somehow race across town to go buy satellites, and then race all the way back to buy something else at a store far away in my area. It was literally impossible. The bank teller was sympathetic, so she told me to fill out another report and that she would speak directly to the fraud team. I also froze my current debit account and transferred all of my money into a new one. Upon arriving home from the bank, I was getting a bit paranoid. Being a victim of theft in the form of fraud is such a violating experience, and I felt like I was being gaslighted. I actually did have a boyfriend at the time, and I am not proud to admit that in my stressed, frantic state, I ended up going through his stuff, looking for receipts from that damned satellite depot. I spent most of that afternoon in silent anguish over my money being stolen, and the stupid bank not believing me. I decided to go and contact someone from the satellite depot. I sent an email pleading my case, hoping someone could help me catch the thief. In a matter of minutes after sending that email, I got a call from the store. The conversation went like this. Employee:
Do you vape?
Me: yes? Employee:
Okay, well, our store, the satellite depot, also owns a vape company chain called X.
Me: but internally. I then immediately called the bank to tell them to call off my fraud report, terrified that I would be in legal trouble for my negligence. Yet it turns out that those dubious purchases were in fact me, buying stuff for my vape every month. My parents and friends now think I am an idiot, as I ranted so much to them about my money being stolen. My dad was so disappointed, and I still haven't been able to tell my boyfriend that he was a suspect to me. Plus, I definitely was thinking about calling the police on that Kijiji guy. 3. At the time of this particular fuck-up, the family had an annual Easter tradition where everyone would get together and celebrate the occasion by buying packs of eggs, grabbing those dollar store egg dyeing kits, and sitting down all together dyeing the eggs different shades of pastel colors. It always turned out pretty well, and once they were all done and dry, we would grab the eggs and hide them around the house as one big Easter egg hunt. Everyone had fun doing it, and every member of the family would participate, regardless of age. Now this particular Easter has started off a bit late. We colored the eggs day of rather than a few days before, and that already proved to be a problem. By the time we colored them and set them out to dry, it was already around 10 p.m, too late for the kids of the house. At the time, me and my younger sister to go egg searching. As our parents broke the news to us, we were both crushed. The egg hunting was our favorite part. This could not happen. We needed our annual Easter egg hunt. So we both begged and pleaded with our parents to excuse us just this once, to embark on our ever-so-beloved Easter egg hunt. Just once this year. I'm pretty sure the only reason they agreed was because we were annoying as all hell, but nevertheless, we got what we wanted, and all parties, including the adults, were happy. As happy as one can be with two bratty daughters tugging at their arms anyways. So the annual Easter egg hunt commenced. They gave us baskets, hid the eggs, and counted to 10 before letting us out, and we, the children, wreaked havoc on the living room, flipping chairs, checking tables, opening piano lids, jumping on top of chairs to check tops of cabinets, the whole shebang. Obviously, because our parents wanted us to go to bed, they hid the eggs in places so obvious, we both found them all in a matter of minutes. Did that quench our egg-hunting fever, though? Oh no. No. It made it so much worse. As soon as we found them all, my mother came to us, counted the eggs, and upon coming to the conclusion that they were all there, took the baskets and told us to go to bed. Me, however, being the ever so weaselly little kid I am, managed to convince her to let us hide and find the eggs ourselves, while she and my father could sit back and watch. And that was fuck-up number 1. She gave us the baskets back and told me to make sure I counted them all when I hid them, so I wouldn't leave any left over afterwards and stink up the house. I agreed without understanding a word of what she said, as one does, and proceeded to hide all of them in the hardest possible places to find and get to. Fuck-up number 2. Finally, after a good few minutes of hiding eggs in the most extreme way possible, I set my younger sister loose and watched as she slowly but surely found the eggs. Right now I can clearly remember there were 25 eggs in total, painted all rainbow colors with stupid little stickers plastering them, making them atrociously bright and easy to spot in the dark places. However, tiny child me didn't seem to care enough to remember back then, and so when my sister gave up, I counted all her eggs, which came to be about 24 neon painfully shiny eggs altogether. Well, 24 is close enough to 25. I don't remember what happened to the final egg, and it's around 12:30 AM now. Too late for me to be fully awake and thinking straight. Maybe I just miscounted. Not wanting to have any more hassle with finding the missing egg, I just called it a night and decided to try and find the egg behind my parents' back tomorrow. Fuck-up number 3. I absolutely forgot about the egg and the whole Easter debacle by the next day, and everyone took my word for it when I said all the eggs were there. So it was no surprise that by the time a good 6 months had passed, the house started stinking like someone had spontaneously combusted and melted into a puddle of steaming hot shit. My father was understandably pissed. There was the stench of the 7th ring of hell permeating from the living room into every room of the house. The main hallway was so clouded with death stench, you could barely walk through without vomiting, as it was impossible to breathe fresh, scentless air if you weren't standing next to a window. Needless to say, the entire household was frantic looking for the source of the stench, and we had nearly given up hope, until, of course, I opened the bottommost drawer of a toy cabinet, and was hit with a wave of fresh, life-sucking, Satan's asshole-smelling air, strong enough to make me gag thinking about it today. I remember telling everyone I found it, and standing up to grab a pair of gloves to go digging for the real source of the smell. But when I sat back down in front of the drawer, I found I saw a cracked, dulled, duckling sticker-plastered egg, rolling around on the inside of the drawer next to the pads used for karate training. In triumph, I reached in and pulled it out, ready to boast about my discovery, until I felt the yolk of the egg, hardened and rattling like a demonic, La Brea tar pit-smelling maraca that was flaking off with the slightest touch. I remember screaming and running to the trash can, dropping it in with my gloves before proceeding to rush to the bathroom and wash my hands about 8 times despite my use of gloves. Fortunately, no one ripped my head off for that. They were much too disgusted to realize where it came from, and frankly, I'm sure they couldn't care less. But after that year, we never used real eggs for Easter egg hunts again. I'm sure that's the reason plastic eggs are a thing. What do you know? 4. This happened my summer going into senior year of high school. I am now going into my junior year of college. Alright, so everyone that knows me knows that I have figuratively no sense of balance. I do not know how to ride a bike, a skateboard, a scooter, a ripstick, one of those hoverboard things that used to be popular, etc. So not going with my friends to a mountain biking trail should have been painfully obvious. This happened in June, pretty much a week after school ended, and it started out as a typical summer day, just trying to figure out something to do, instead of watching YouTube videos all day. Some of my friends started suggesting we go mountain biking in our local park, and I thought, sure, why not? The group that went was pretty small since all other members of our friend group were busy or had to work, so it was only me and 3 other friends. I didn't own a bike, and none of my friends had a spare, so I thought it would be a great idea to steal my cousin's bike. The bike was like a teenage girl's bike that was purple, light blue, and pink, so of course anytime my friends tell the story, they say it was a princess bike. But bottom line, it wasn't suitable for mountain biking, and I also didn't have a helmet. We get to the park, and we park our cars on top of this rest/pavilion area. It's on top of this hill. We unload our bikes and they start riding around the pavilion area, getting warmed up, while I'm in the process of teaching myself how to ride a bike. So after my friends waited a while, they decided to go without me, which is understandable. Only a couple minutes passed after my 3 friends were to actually start biking the trails, and I started getting the hang of things on the flat surface concrete area. So I thought to myself, I got this, I'm going to go catch up to them. I regretted that decision immediately. Once you leave the parking area, you take a left to get the biking trails. So I ride the bike over and take a left. It never crossed my mind to look at how big of a hill the parking area was on. And next thing I knew, I'm doing at least 30 miles per hour on a teenage girl's bike, down an extremely large hill. I was going down a concrete road, so if I fell in the middle of it, I probably would have gotten extreme road rash. Almost immediately I started doing what I call the death wobble, and kept telling myself, don't panic, don't panic! The bike didn't have handlebar brakes, and I didn't know back pedal brakes existed until after the incident, so that was unfortunate. The last thing I remember while violently cruising down the enormous hill was seeing my friends at the bottom of the hill not noticing me yet, while I was probably 3/4 down the hill. The part of the story where I'm on the last stretch of the hill is told by my friends, since I was blacked out by, I guess, too much adrenaline, panic. One of my friends said, did we tell him to stay up there and not follow us? Next thing you know, they look up the hill, and I'm coming down fast and furious. One of my friends tried to grab my bike's handlebars to stop me, but I was going too fast. I hit a bump and went 10 feet in the air and 30 feet out, while still on the bike, hit a fence and rolled down into a concrete draining ditch, getting cuts and bruises in the process. I wake up and try to stand up, but there's a sharp pain in my ankle. This professional biker guy comes running up asking if I was okay, that I didn't need to try and stand up, and told my friends to call 911. The paramedics came and started chuckling when they saw I did this to myself on a purple, light blue and pink bike, which is understandable. I then proceed to laugh about everything with the paramedics, doctors and nurses. Thankfully my friends were there for me, to take great pictures of my idiocy while being loaded up in the ambulance, be there in the hospital room, be able to tell me what happened when I blacked out, and give me a ride home. Also remember the sharp pain in the ankle. Turns out it was just a sprain. Edit. A detail that I forgot about. When I hit the bump and went flying, my friends said I flew straight over their heads and it looked like the flying bike scene from E.T. "5. As I was leaving for work in the morning, I noticed that there was a strange pink-colored pool of liquid spreading out from under my garage workbench. Upon closer inspection, I discovered that a gallon bottle of cleaner and degreaser had somehow spilt on the bottom and dumped its contents all over the floor. Since I was dressed for my office job and not hosing out the garage, I decided it would have to wait until I got home. So fast forward to that evening, I get home, change into suitable clothes, and get to work cleaning up my minor chemical spill. The spill is in the corner under the workbench, which makes it hard to hose down in a way that would get the soapy runoff out the garage door. So in my infinite wisdom, I decide to use the shop vac to suck all the spill after I've hosed it down. The cleaner had dried up some, and had turned sludgy by the time I got home, so I needed to add water to make it vacuumable. It worked exceedingly well, and of course, that's when my plan fell apart. At this point, I had a vacuum full of dingy water capped with white, fluffy suds that I needed to be disposed of. So I take off the vacuum motor and wheel the base outside, where I dump the thing in the side yard. And this is when I discovered that months earlier, I had neglected to empty the shop vac after I had used it to clean up some broken fluorescent tubes. I had just dumped a mixture of dirt, dog hair, soapy water, and innumerable shards of glass into the yard, and the lawn guys were coming the next morning to mow the lawn. And I didn't want anyone to die from whatever happens when you run over a pile of broken glass with a riding mower. So to my infinite shame, I put the vacuum back together and proceeded to vacuum all of this scummy, soapy glass from my lawn. A neighbor drove by while I was doing it. I did not make eye contact. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Embarrassing Stories, episode 76. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. You know, I can quite relate to the story of the lady who fell off her bike. I had a similar kind of tumble myself not long after I got my new bike. I just kind of like she did, I guess. I misjudged the pavement and forgot to kind of give the bike a little pull as I was going up it. And went right over the handlebars. Bike went flying, I went flying. I'm sure it was quite impressive to watch. Fortunately, I wasn't hurt. To my surprise, I wasn't hurt. Bike had a little bit of a ding. The brakes were a bit wonky for the rest of that ride, but they seem okay now. They've been kind of worked free, I guess. Though there was a kind of a creepy, dirty, smelly guy while I was stopped and checking the bike and myself, trying to make sure everything was okay before I proceeded on. He walked up and he tried to start touching the bike. I think in his mind he might have been trying to help, but at the same time, don't walk up to a stranger and start touching the property, mate. Anyway, with that I'm going to head off for now. Hope you all have a good weekend. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.